The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Second Breakfast podcast. I'm Andy Roth alongside Phil Duvall. Say hi, Phil.
Hello, Andy, and hello, nation of Second Breakfast. It is nice to see you all today, and to hear your loving voices yelling at the computer and at the iPodcast.
I don't. Is this what a stroke sounds like? Is this Are you? I'm actually slightly worried. Are you okay?
There's nothing, Andy. Really, all I know is what's funnier than stroke humor. Really, let's be honest.
Nothing in the world. So I'll tell you, folks. What this has just illustrated is that we still have no idea what to say between saying hello to you and introducing our topic for the day. I have never have a clue.
Nothing. I really don't.
Do you remember that podcast where I was just like, hello, and you said hello, and it's like, ah, just to have sound in there somewhere.
It really is the most awkward part of our whole job. I know you don't believe me, but I really feel that way.
No, I believe you, and if someone out there doesn't believe you, they haven't listened to enough of us. In which case, what are you doing with your life? Okay, today we are discussing that hallowed season, the center of the Hollywood release schedule universe.
Oh boy.
Dumpuary.
The gaping vortex.
the gaping, it doesn't even deserve polar vortex. That is Dumpuary. Oof. Also known as that time between when Oscar bait comes out, end of the year, December, and November a little bit, through... Actually, I've heard it described as late as like the Oscars, because before the Oscars, everyone's focused still on those movies that are nominated and stuff, and so there's like this dumping ground, and it is called Dumpuary because traditionally that is where movies that were too expensive not to release get dumped. Because they have, oh god, we're not going to make any money, but we have to make, if one person buys a ticket, it's better than nobody buying a ticket, and we have to make back the $7 that we will make off of...
It's not good.
Yeah, right. So we're going to talk about that a bit. We're going to talk about why it exists a little bit, and we're going to talk about whether we think it still needs to exist. And then we're going to talk to you about, we're going to give you a few movies that came out in Dumpuary that were of better than Dumpuary quality. That diamonds in the rough, as Aladdin would prove to be, or the movie would tell us about. That ran out of steam quick. I got nothing. Thank you, folks. I'm here all week.
Well done, Andy. You're trying. You know what? You're trying, which is more than I can say for myself.
That's true.
I have a feeling going into this. I'm going to warn everybody. And I guess by virtue of warning everybody, you're everybody as well, so warn you. That I have a feeling you are going to be much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Your opinion is going to be much more educated than mine, but no less insanely impassioned.
Oh, sure. Right. Often wrong, never uncertain. Yes.
Exactly that. Exactly that.
So the first time I ever came across the phrase Dumpuary, or actually, I'm fairly certain he didn't use the phrase Dumpuary or the term Dumpuary, but the concept that January is the time when crappy movies go to die a very, very quiet, unlamented death.
Yeah.
Was a few years ago, I read a Roger Ebert review of the Samuel L. Jackson, Ben Affleck classic, Changing Lanes. Do you remember this movie?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I never actually saw the whole movie, but I remember it.
It's not a good movie.
What? What'd you say?
Yeah. This was post Good Will Hunting, pre The Town, Gone Baby Gone, and Argo Affleck. And I mean, I love Samuel L. Jackson, but he's never not been a guy who would just take a role for a paycheck. So he's very British in that way.
It's true. It's true.
And he is, of course, a British actor.
Wrap it up.
Danny, wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
And Ebert loved this movie. Loved this movie. And I watched it, and I was like, yeah, that movie was awesome! Because Ebert liked it. And then I thought about it the rest of the day, and I was like, wait a minute. Maybe I don't agree with Roger Ebert on this one.
Right.
And so I read other reviews, just sort of see what the general pulse was, the general conversation about it was, and people started saying, well, what do you expect? It was released in January. And I was like, what? And so I started reading more, and the fact is that, like, there are movies that sit on the shelf for years, and they just do, because it would actually cost the studio more money to release it than they could ever hope to make. They wouldn't even break...
So sad.
Right? They wouldn't even break even on the distribution of it, in other words, right?
Yeah.
Because that's not an an insignificant cost. But there is, and then there are, of course, like whether or not they actually become hits, but they're the ones that are considered surefire hits, and those get released all year round.
Right.
But there are those movies in the middle, which, like, we're not going to make our money back on this, but we will cover the distribution costs, so at least we will sort of defray the horror show that was the budget at least a little bit.
Yep.
Also, you will see this with movies that were on the shelf and something about their profitability changes, like the Red Dawn remake, when Adrian Palicki and Chris Hemsworth and whatever the kid's name is who's playing PETA in the Hunger Games,
right.
They became stars, and so I was like,
and they're like, "Oh, we can make some money off this.
Oh, we can maybe make some money off this," and they didn't.
It turns out they didn't,
because it's still terrible. But that's
right,
okay.
Because bad is bad.
Bad is bad. But when
do we consider March part of Dumpuary?
Perhaps, but less and less so. I mean,
okay.
Josh Hutcherson. Sorry, Josh. Love you, big guy. You're awesome as PETA. And I'm sure you're awesome in the Journey to the Mysterious Island, but I've never seen it. So what happens? Well, you have this period of the year that, as we discussed earlier, it's after the Oscar bait movies have come out. It's before the Oscars, so people are still talking about them because all of the press right now is still about Oscars. In addition, you have the time of year when people don't have a lot of disposable income because they've just spent all their money on Christmas gifts and vacations over kids' winter break and stuff like that.
Right.
And the weather's crappy, and so people don't want to go out to the movies anyway, and so the studios are not going to risk throwing a movie out there that might do really well at another time of year when it's almost certainly, even if it ends up making money, it's almost certainly going to make less money than... Right. I don't have the figures in front of me, but I'm going to guess that the largest ever January and February opening, I'm going to guess those are the two biggest openings ever for if you go by month. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense.
So... But of course, that becomes like a vicious cycle, right? Like, things are bad. Things don't make money because they're bad, because they don't make money, because no one goes to see them because they're bad, and it's just like, it just feeds upon itself. And now, we have been trained as moviegoers to expect crap. Or, at the very least, low-budget horror movies, strangely. Because, I mean, I would release... I mean, is it weird that, like, why wouldn't you release a horror movie at Halloween? Every horror movie should come out in the months of September and October.
I mean, honestly, I was trying to figure out why Valentine's Day this year there wasn't. I mean, I won't say there was none because apparently About Last Night has actually been getting good reviews, and they put this movie out About Last Night, and hopefully maybe white people will start seeing movies that star black people, maybe. But I mean, I doubt it. But you never know. the reason I bring that up is it's like we went out for the movies on Valentine's Day. We should have seen About Last Night in retrospect, but like we were looking at the list and it was like that was the only romantic comedy on the slate.
That's weird. I agree. That's weird.
There was like a teenage romantic comedy that came out called Endless Love or something that no one is gonna. That's not a real thing.
Not a romantic comedy. It's like a melodrama.
A romantic misery.
Based on all of the reviews I've read, precisely yes.
What was funny though was as I was walking into the movie that we did end up seeing, the endlessly romantic Monuments Men, there were teenage couples sitting outside of the screen waiting for Endless Love to open so they could get into it, and they were all just sitting there holding each other and making out. And I was like, I picked the wrong movie? Nope. Nope. Not what I said. Not what I said.
Look, if they're making out with each other, they're not texting or annoying you.
Well, then, no, I mean, they were outside of the theater. They weren't in the theater.
No, I know. But like in terms of like...
People can make out inside the theater all they want.
I know.
I think that's... I haven't done it in years, but I'm all for it.
You ready for this? I don't think I've ever made out in a movie.
Oh. I have stories for you after the podcast is over.
Well, let me put it this way. I have certainly kissed someone in a movie theater, but I've definitely never gone to a movie with the intention of making out with the person that I've been with or gone with.
I had one girlfriend in high school. I had more than one girlfriend in high school, but I had one particular girlfriend in high school where that was why we went to the movies. And shockingly, that relationship didn't last long.
What a perfectly terrible waste of a decent movie-going experience, or potentially good movie-going experience.
No, we went and saw bad movies. Because Andy, I've always been a movie snob. Like, so it's not like I was going to put up with that making out nonsense, like during a Tarantino flick. Like that wasn't going to happen.
Okay, good.
So,
good. Then you're doing it right. You're doing it right.
Yeah,
okay, fair enough.
That was an interesting. It was an interesting 14-year-old me, 15-year-old me, 15-year-old me was an interesting fellow. Interesting fellow.
15-year-old anybody is an interesting fellow.
Yeah, I'm not that guy anymore.
Thank God. I say that without knowing 15-year-old you. Just thank God you're not the. Okay. Let's move to the second portion of our thing, and that is, I'm not sure Dumpuary still needs to exist.
Okay. Why did it ever need to exist, though? I mean, you've explained why it exists, but I'm saying, like, I don't know. Well, okay, go ahead and give us your argument as to why it doesn't exist.
Okay. I don't know that it ever needed to exist, but the studios thought that it needed to exist. You need a time to dump your movies. And January and February are the best. Those are the best 2 months to do it. Does that make sense?
It does.
But for any number of reasons, that no longer applies, I don't think. I mean, you've got... First off, information is more readily available than ever before. Shockingly! Oh my God, there's a thing called the internet! Thank you for watching our podcast. Or listening to our podcast.
There you go.
But, like, I know everything I need to know about any movie that's coming out ever. Right?
It's true. No, it's absolutely true.
And I am just... And yes, I know I'm perhaps more likely to go to the movies than most other people. But at the same time, like, I feel like I don't think it's an unusual feeling. Like, I get why you would think, oh, the weather's crappy, I don't want to get out there. But unless there's actually, like, a snowpocalypse like we've been having recently... unless there's active bad weather, if it snowed like 4 days ago, I'll still go to the movies, and you know what? Maybe I'm going a little stir-crazy in my apartment, or my house. Maybe I want to go somewhere that isn't my abode, but I can't go for a walk because the weather's still crappy, so I need to go somewhere inside. So I go to a dinner and a movie, right?
I'm with you. You're saying things I agree with.
Also, we see, so we've got, so here are the other sort of seasons of movies. You've got summer blockbusters. You've got the fall horror. Like, because, August, September, October, you do see sort of a glut of horror movies. Others as well, of course, but that's probably where more genre to use the term the way it's become known, more genre fare in the fall than in other parts of the year. Right. And then you have Oscar bait starting around Thanksgiving through December.
Right.
But Marvel is releasing a movie in April this year. You know? Summer is starting earlier and earlier. We have big budget movies happening all over the place. And
right.
Some look at this, and I would look at this as well, as just, oh God, there will be no more middle class of movies. There will be tiny
It is.
movies.
It's the squeezing out of the middle class.
Right. But there's another way to look at it, and that is, if you don't look at a movie that has to be released at a certain time, blockbusters being released anytime means that you can counter-program at any time. You know?
Yeah, no, you're right. I agree.
And it's unfortunately part of human nature that you're not going to be able to release Oscar bait early. Because people have short memories. Which is why elephants should vote on the nominations. I
don't know what just happened.
I don't either. I'm drunk. You're drunk. Go home. So you can't do that, right? No one is going to release the King's Speech in March, right?
Right.
But you could release Inside Llewyn Davis in March. You could release, Short Term 12 whenever you wanted to, right? Even sort of big budget non-blockbuster movies like the latest Vince Vaughn comedy doesn't have to be released in summer. It can be released at any point. And if that's the case, then maybe a studio releases. First off, and I know this is a losing battle, studios make better movies. But assuming you're always going to have crap that needs to be dumped somewhere, dump it elsewhere and fill January and February with movies that are worth watching, right?
Well, Andy, you're preaching to the choir. I love it. I love this idea. I
don't know that I've proven that it doesn't need to exist.
I don't know. I just feel like it. But no, I mean, I feel like it. You and I, it's like the cynical answer or the sort of hopeless answer is it doesn't need to exist because you don't need to make these crappy movies. But the reality is they're going to make these crappy movies, and
right.
and then we have to deal with it. And I think that, I do feel like, can't they sprinkle the crap throughout the year? Why do they have to put it all in one section? But I mean, here's the deal. I don't know. Part of me is like, well, they're the experts. They must know what they're doing. And then I think about what I just said, and I go, that's not true.
They're the only game in town, right?
It's like some people don't know this about me, but I am a fair weather fan of professional wrestling.
Okay.
I should say it's an on again, off again relationship, because actually some of the time that I wasn't paying attention to wrestling was apparently some of the best times in its history, unfortunately.
Okay.
But I'm an on again, off again. I have a heated on again, off again relationship with professional wrestling. But the problem with professional wrestling is it's not even like a monopoly like baseball is a monopoly. Because as messed up as baseball is, there are 32 teams with 32 different owners and all these different organizations, and it's crazy.
But yes.
Whatever. Fine, 30. There should be 32. I'm waiting for Charlotte, North Carolina to get a team.
Fair.
Although I'm fine with them just stealing the Toronto Blue Jays because I don't really think Canada needs a baseball team. Sure. I don't really care how anybody feels about that. That's what I think. And then they could stay in the AL East. I thought about this a lot when I lived in Charlotte. Anyways, so my point is that the problem with professional wrestling is there's only one owner. Vince McMahon owns WWE, and it is the only game in town.
Right.
There was a point when WCW was around, and he basically did what any good capitalist would do, and he outspent them and outlasted them and just drove them to the ground.
Right.
Like Conan the Barbarian, and fed on the blood of their children and all that.
To crush your enemies, to drive your enemies before you, and hear the lamentations of the women.
He was listening to the lamentations of the gorgeous ladies of wrestling from WCW. That's what he was doing. I mean, so I guess it's the case. Like, there's only one, but there isn't one gig in town. Like, there's a bunch of different movie studios,
Yeah.
and there could easily be a movie studio that was just like, we're going to release some really good stuff. But it comes down to the weird Oscar. I mean, so much of it has to do with Oscar fever.
Right. That's true.
So much of it has to do with Oscar fever and the way that the Oscar stuff is dealt with. But you know what? In the end, Oscars aren't as important as money. Because really, what is the god that we all bow down to in this world? Money.
Well,
and if there's money to be made, then what's the problem?
From the studio's perspective, why do they care? Why do producers... No, I don't say producers, because there are producers out there that are in it. But why do the studios care about the Oscars? Because Oscar-nominated movies and Oscar-winning movies get bumps at the box office.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it attracts more talent for their future movies. Right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I know you're right.
This is all to say I agree with you. I might be about to be brilliant. You know what I think might help? If Dumpuary does go away, you know what I think might help influence that?
Tell me.
Television. The television season?
Say more.
I will. The television season isn't a thing of the past. They still premiere many shows in September, and it goes until May. Yep. But you have shows starting in January. You have special run shows in the summer now. You have shows starting at all different staggered points with varying season lengths. And I think right now January has Justified. Yep.
True Detectives.
Yep.
Girls. Mm-hmm. Looking. And I know there's other shows that I'm not even paying attention to. Like, those are the ones that I've been watching that just all started up again now.
Yeah.
And it's great television. HBO, by the way, is... I'm going to go counter some things that I've read recently. HBO is in a renaissance. HBO is in... I think True Detective, Girls, and Looking is one of the best 2-hour blocks HBO's ever provided.
Wow.
I mean, it is hearkening back.
Nice.
You put it that way.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of True Detective waiting for me to watch it.
It's not waiting. It's just sitting there in its own little existential dread.
Okay.
Not even contemplating whether or not you will watch it. It could sit on your DVR and it would fulfill its purpose as True Detective. Just as much. This part of the thing about True Detective, and then we'll get back to Dumpuary. Part of the thing about True Detective, Andy, that is great is that it's just as much fun to make fun of as it is to enjoy.
I can't wait.
But making fun of it doesn't lessen how much you want to watch it.
Okay.
Like, it's not like Walking Dead where you make fun of it because that's the only way to survive it.
Sure.
Like, it's kind of like making fun of it the same way you make fun of, like, people make fun of, like, Tarantino's style.
Right.
Are you going to stop watching Tarantino?
No.
And I'm not yet ready to compare True Detective to Tarantino. I'm not saying it's not at a place for me that Sopranos Deadwood zone, but it's to me it's easily as good as Game of Thrones. Like, I don't think that's a question.
Okay.
So anyways.
Nice. All right.
Back to Dumpuary. But I think that's a really interesting idea. So you're saying that TV's providing a format to show that there's money to be had all year round.
Yes, and how much have we talked on this podcast at various points about the sort of the steal from the best relationship that TV and movies have had with each other through the years? You know?
Yes.
I mean...
Yes, and I think TV... I think we talked about this a little bit before, but I really do think somehow, and I'm still not sure how, I'm still working on it.
Okay.
But the quality of TV is going to affect how films get released and made. You know, I'm still working on how, but it will.
I like it. So I want to finish today by talking about by giving you hope, Second Breakfast Nation. Second Breakers, even in Dumpuary, there are in fact diamonds in the rough, and I have compiled a short list of some of my favorites. I confess I didn't do a lot of research here, so these are mostly from the last couple of years. But Phil has done the same, and so we'll tell you some things that you should have seen, even though they came out in Dumpuary. Sound good?
Yes.
You want to go first?
I mean, do you want me to hit heavy?
Go for it.
Okay, I'm gonna hit heavy here.
Do it.
Wait, did I write it down? Oh God. Oh, there it is. Okay, February 19th,
Yeah.
1999.
Okay.
Office Space.
Boom. Love it. Love.
Boom.
Love. Love it. Okay.
That to me also is an essential kind of movie that you could see during Dumpuary, where it is a low budget comedy that doesn't really have. They're not sure what to do with it. They don't know what to do with it.
Right.
And it actually didn't find an audience until much later. It did fail when it came out in the theaters, but that's a movie that's like it fits a lot of the tropes of what it means to come out at that time. Except obviously, it's gloriously fantastic.
Nice.
You
I
know?
like it.
All right, what you got?
I'm gonna go heavy, but I'm gonna go heavy with a movie unlike Office Space, because I agree with you. You could see that being released then.
I know what you're about to say, but say it.
I know. This movie should have been released in December so that it could have gotten the Oscar consideration it so thoroughly deserved. Maybe the best movie I saw that year, The Grey.
Oh, I knew. I typed it before you said it.
Of course you did. Of course you did. Folks, this is a movie that you probably remember as Liam Neeson breaking a bottle and using the shards of a bottle to bottle shard punch some evil wolves. And if you remember it that way, you didn't see it. Because this is a movie, and it's not your fault, because that's how it was marketed to you. Because that's how they market things in January and February. This is a movie that wrestles with some huge questions, and the existence or non-existence of God, the what do we do with ourselves whether or not God exists? How do we face the rest of our lives after a tragedy has happened? At what point, fights for survival, and all of that, I know it sounds like you're taking the most boring college lecture ever. It is a totally riveting and engrossing movie. It is I will say it. It is a masterpiece. It is a masterpiece.
Oh, say it. That's legit.
And it was released in January. I could watch that movie all the time. And even if nothing I said about it was true, nothing I've already just said about it was true, the fact that it reintroduced Frank Grillo to me, I just thank you, The Grey. I love you. I love you.
Yes, you should. I love how much you love Frank Grillo. By the way,
I hope Frank Grillo loves how much I love Frank Grillo.
He doesn't care.
I know he doesn't, and it makes me sad.
January 18th, 2008, Cloverfield.
Love it. Love it.
So far, nothing has... Okay, the only movie that I can list, by the way, that has the heft of The Grey, that I can think of right now.
Yeah.
And it actually didn't come out till March, but it still was and to me it's the classic example of putting an Oscar caliber movie in the craziest time possible. Fargo.
Nice.
Fargo came out in March of 1996.
Okay.
Or 1995, which is just ridiculous.
Yep. Okay. Yeah.
What you got?
My version of Cloverfield, because it was between this or the other one, Chronicle.
Yes.
It's a great little sci-fi movie. I know why it was released in January, but it's just a delight. It's glorious. It's a found footage movie, and yet it manages not to be annoying in the way they sort of deal with camera angles, which is always the problem with found footage movies, and the way they the way they deal with the question, why don't you just put the camera down? I think it's the most ingenious found footage movie I've ever seen in terms of that, because most found footage, like, the way they answer that question is, I just have to keep filming. And it's, I mean, okay,
no.
But
which is the problem with Cloverfield, actually.
Which is the problem with Cloverfield. It's the problem with Blair Witch Project. It's the problem with, well, it's one of the problems with Diary of the Dead. But that movie's problems are legion.
This is a case in which the word legion is apt.
Indeed. I got another one for you. I'm going old
Please.
school. I'm going old school. I forget. Stand by. So I won't go old school just yet. From last year, Warm Bodies.
Oh, yes. But that came out in March. But yes, you're right.
Did it? I thought it came out in February.
You might be right. I'm trying to find out, and I don't know. You're right. You're right. You're right. I know you're right. Warm Bodies. February 1st.
February 1st. Just a delightful movie. I know why they released it in Dumpuary. It's a zombie love story. How do you market that? I don't know. Let's put it in Dumpuary. Okay, I'll go old school now because I found it and I confirmed it was released January 10th, 1992. The Hand That Rocks the Cradle.
Oh, Andy.
I
like it.
A truly involving and engrossing thriller. Rebecca De Mornay, totally terrifying.
January 30th, 1987.
Oh my god, I can't wait.
Radio Days.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. And by the way, that same year. Now, this is March now, but still 1987. March 6th, 1987. Both both Lethal Weapon and Raising Arizona came out.
Okay.
March 6th, 1987, and then the next week, Evil Dead came out. Evil Dead 2 came out. So obviously, by March, we're out of the dregs.
So let's talk about this for a second because that's the second Dumpuary Coen brothers, and Radio Days is Woody Allen. So,
although we are getting into March now, but it seems
but
Woody Allen. I think Woody Allen used to be. This is before they had Oscar season was a specific season,
right?
Or Woody Allen would the movie would get released whenever he was done with it.
Well, see, yes. And I think, well, yes, that's true. And I think you see people like Woody Allen and the Coen brothers, and if I can use the nerdy, geeky term, auteurs, people who are, like, known for their craft, they're like, I just want it released. And I mean, if you want to put it in December for Oscar consideration, great. But mostly, I just want to get it out there, And
I think that's who the Coen brothers used to be, but they've started to co-produce their movies with Scott Rudin, who is very, very business savvy and Oscar savvy.
Sure. And
I mean, if you look at the list of movies that Scott Rudin's name has been attached to that have been nominated, I think he's like the unsung Weinstein brother, essentially.
Sure.
But I mean, Inside Llewyn Davis could have been released last March or February,
right?
And it wasn't released until December.
Well, I guess right. That's such. I did not know that about Scott Rudin, and that is absolutely fascinating. And I think it's an excellent point. I also think perhaps, and maybe it won't be the Coen brothers, but maybe it will still be Woody Allen or Jason Reitman or Wes Anderson, or who has a movie coming out in a couple weeks, which again is into March, but still, maybe these younger, again to use the word auteurs, these like, maybe if Dumpuary goes away, it's because some of these guys are releasing movies whenever the hell they want to. And their movies aren't big enough. I mean, Woody Allen has never been a huge box office draw, right? Studios didn't release his movies because they made them more money directly. They released his movies because there was a cachet to them, and that would get them other projects that would make them money, right? So yeah. So they didn't care. Like, sure, put out Radio Days whenever you want. Sure, Wes Anderson, put out Grand Budapest Hotel whenever you want. And I think maybe if people start going to the movies more because there are movies that they want to see earlier, maybe that's something that will do away with Dumpuary as well.
Well said.
Thank you. I have two more that I can say together.
Please.
One, just as a nod to, well, I guess Cloverfield did this as well, as a nod to the fact that Dumpuary has become sort of a secondary sort of breeding ground for horror movies. Mama from last year, which I thought, which was not a great movie, but it is a good movie, and it is an engrossing horror film. without being too gory, it has Jessica Chastain being awesome.
That's what she does for a living.
It's true. She is awesome for a living. And then from this year, the one movie that I would suggest everyone see, the Lego Movie. Everything is awesome.
It's lovely.
It's lovely.
I have lots of thoughts. I want to know if it's going to last in my head or if it was just the first impression. It definitely felt like a movie that was designed for my generation, which is interesting.
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Ready?
Yes.
From 2009, one of the great Dumpuary films, and I think a great example of what people think Dumpuary is, but when it's done right, a little film called Taken.
Love.
I mean,
yes.
It's classic.
Yes.
But it's become emblematic of when it works.
Yeah. I like it.
That same year, in 2009, in February 6th, Coraline came out.
Nice.
And that movie is a legitimate entry into. I mean, that's Nightmare on Elm Street, Nightmare Before Christmas, I should say, Nightmare Before Christmas level filmmaking. I mean, it should be treated in that same regard in terms of spooky stop animation stuff.
Yeah.
Back in 2002, January of 2002, there was another, I think, really wonderful Dumpuary example called The Mothman Prophecies, starring Richard Gere. I
remember it, and I was like, I'm totally going to see that, and I didn't see it.
Tightly made, quick, well-told suspense thriller with like horror overtones, but not a horror movie.
Okay.
And I mean, and to me, a perfect example of what that can do. I think these movies were 2008. The Hugh Grant, Drew Barrymore trifle, Music and Lyrics,
okay.
which came out on Valentine's Day and is a perfect example of the kind of movie that should come out on Valentine's Day.
Yes.
And then that same year was a movie called Amazing Grace, which starred Ian Griffin and was about William Wilberforce, who was the English abolitionist who fought to end slavery in England. Very, very good movie, and I think that's my list. That's my list for you.
Nice. Okay.
But I mean, really, when you think about it, I mean, the heavy hitters generally don't get released in January. I mean, The Grey was just shocking to me that it got released when it got released.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah, and do you know when Warriors came out?
Warrior.
I
thought it was the fall.
You're probably right.
Because I saw it. It was.
You're right. It came out in September. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I want to watch that movie again right now.
I know. I want to watch that movie. I always want to. I gotta go. I gotta watch Warrior.
That's pretty much it. That's it,
folks. Right. September 9th. Yeah. But it's so funny with the way that movie was forgotten and sort of like what didn't raise more than a blip. My first thought when I was making my list of movies was when was Warrior released? I was like, my first one was The Grey. Second one was, wait a minute, what about Warrior? Third one was, Frank Grillo.
Oh, you.
He's in both, folks. You'll all see him when you go see Captain America 2, because apparently he's in that. And then see everything else he's ever done, because awesome.
Well done, Andy. Well done.
Yes. And that'll do it, I guess. So enjoy the dregs of Dumpuary. Next week, folks, we'll be around giving you an Oscar preview of sorts in the way we do. So look forward to that, because Oscars! Nothing is ever more important than giving awards for art.
There's going to be so much snark next week.
Snarkapalooza.
It's going to be dirty. Down and dirty.
And you can't wait for that. Folks, this has been another Second Breakfast podcast. I am Andy Roth alongside Phil Duvall. We will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.